In this video, I'll be comparing the MK16 with the VK-15. We'll be looking at the stats side by side, recoil patterns, damage per second, shots per second, and much more. Hey, what's up primers? It's Anthony here from No Nonsense, bringing you an info-packed video today. We are going so in-depth on these guns, you'll be looking for a ladder because of how deep we've dug. So before we take a look at the stats, let's just remind ourselves what these guns can do.
It's all about humanity.
Okay, so let's look at the gun stats side by side to start. It's well known that the MK16 has a high fire rate. There's only one other assault rifle with the same fire rate, and that's the X2000. It's also well known that the VK-15 has higher damage, but will the MK16's fire rate compensate for that? The VK-15 also has higher accuracy, which is just hipfire accuracy, but lower control. Longer reload speed. Let's ignore the magazine size as I've put an extended mag on it for a test later on. One thing I love about Battle Prime is that the damage output of a gun is affected by the distance it's trying to shoot at, and here's how distance affects both of these guns. While the MK16 has less damage per shot, doing only 330 damage at maximum level, its damage is also affected a lot sooner than the VK-15's, only being able to shoot at full damage for a full 25 meters. Which is actually quite close. Damage then slopes off to 50, and then from 50 plus the damage stays as low as 198. However, the VK-15 can shoot at full damage to double the MK16 distance, which is 50 meters. If you don't know how far 50 meters is, it's shown here. From card to card on this map, you can see that damage is starting to slope off. Pardon the pencils, I couldn't find an arrow that I liked. Damage then drops off very suddenly from 50 to 54 meters, and then it stays as low as 351 after 54 meters, which is actually higher than the maximum damage from the MK16. So what can we determine from these graphs alone? That the MK16 is only really good up to 25 meters, then expect to be using most, if not all of your magazine to take out longer range opponents. But the VK-15 being able to take out a longer range opponents with ease if your aim's good. Now let's look at recoil. We know how much damage is possible, but if you can't hit them, there's no use. Here's the recoil pattern of both of these rifles, VK on the left and MK on the right. It takes a full 4 seconds to expend 36 bullets from the VK-15 and only 2 seconds from the MK. That rate of fire is doing its job. The VK goes up to the left and the MK to the right. Now we're going to overlay the distance the gun travelled without trying to deal with the recoil. Although the VK-15 had more bullets and a slower rate of fire, it didn't move any further than the MK16. So if you think about it, if it takes less bullets to kill someone because of the higher damage, you have less of a recoil distance, making the VK-15 better than the MK16 on recoil. Usually the higher the damage, the more recoil you have. So that's surprising. Now we know what damage each gun does, and we know how long it takes to use the full mag, so we actually know damage per bullet now. So strap your big boy brain on because we're going to look at potential gun damage per second, stripped down per tenth of a second to be as accurate as possible. Don't worry, I'll talk you through it. We'll go with the MK16 first. We know it takes 2 seconds to use 30 bullets, so by that it takes 1 second to shoot 15 bullets. Divide 30 bullets by 20 tenths of a second, and we know how much damage this gun can do per tenth of a second. We know that a primer has between 2,000 and 3,000 health if you include helmet and vest, so if you use every bullet and every bullet was registered by Battle Prime. At up to 25 meters, it would take just half a second to deal enough damage to kill a fresh Prime with no upgrades, and around 0.7 seconds to kill a fully upgraded one. And at 50 plus meters, it ranges from 0.7 seconds to just over a second. From 25 to 50 meters, it's somewhere in between. Now before you write a comment down below saying this is obviously wrong, this cannot be wrong. However, this is only if every bullet landed and was registered by the game, and you haven't shot them in the head because of the 2x damage multiplier on headshots. I know, all of your experience leads you to believe that this can't be right, but according to the gun stats, it is. I'd love to test this in a private match or use a firing range, but we'll have to wait to include control testing in future videos. Now let's look at the VK-15. Same kind of deal. It takes 4 seconds to fully expend 36 bullets, so for a neat comparison we'll say it takes 2 seconds to use 13. Looking at the damage up to 50 meters, it will take just over half a second to kill a freshie and just under a second for a fully upgraded beast. Slightly longer at each end than the MK16. Going down range, it gets worse at just under a second to 1.4 seconds. The MK16's fire rate is making up for its low damage here. Comparing them together, you can clearly see the difference in time to kill, and the MK16 looks like the winner. Remember though, this is if every bullet registers individually and you're not shooting them in the head. You're probably shouting at the screen right now saying that you prefer the VK-15, aren't you? Well, what else was there? Oh yeah, attachments. I tried to make this comparison as fair as possible, so I upgraded both guns to its maximum level and use similar attachments on both. However, the MK16 doesn't have an angled grip, or a silencer, or a laser sight. So if we took into account everything we've learnt in this video, that the MK16's recoil is harder to handle than the VK-15's, the MK16 kills enemies quicker at very close range, but has a very dramatic drop off, and you have less attachments to choose from. In conclusion, I would choose the VK-15 as being the better weapon overall, but the MK16 is great at close range. But do you know what else is great at close range? SMGs and shotguns. So it kind of makes the MK16 redundant as an assault rifle, which is probably why you get it for free when you start the game. You can take your big boy brain off now. Thank you so much if you're still watching by this point. You are the real MVP. Thank you very much, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.